Hello and welcome to my mid-year review. I'm Dr. Neptune, and it's June 2023. I'm going to be showing you and talking about notable new releases since the beginning of the year, starting with this, Bob Dylan's 17th volume of his ongoing bootleg series. This came out in January of this year, and I own all of these bootleg series, every volume. They are excellent. They're amazing. They always include great liner notes, a little booklet in this case, and then 2 CDs here. They always focus on one period of Dylan's long career, and they're not released chronologically, so they kind of hop around. And this one is from the Time Out of Mind sessions, as it says there. Time Out of Mind, an album released in 97, and ended up winning the Grammy Award that year for Best Album. It was considered in some ways Dylan's comeback album at the time, but he never went away. The audience went away for a while. But this album was, and still is, a Dylan classic. But this bootleg series edition of it is different from all the other bootleg series. And here's how. This first disc is the album itself. All the other bootleg series are more like what you see on disc 2 here, alternate versions of the songs that ended up on the album that he was working on at the time, or alternate versions that didn't make it to the final cut, or different live versions, but always different from the actual releases on the albums that people were familiar with if they knew those albums from a long time. Well, here, this was not re-recorded, this Time Out of Mind album. It's the same tapes as from back in the 90s. It's just been remixed. And the reason is this. Dylan worked on this album with a guy named Daniel Lanois, who at the time was a very hip and trendy producer from Canada. Had worked with U2, among many others. But he had a signature sort of sound, and it was an atmospheric, polyrhythmic sound influenced by what was then called world music, sort of. I think Peter Gabriel-ish of the time. A lot of echoey studio effects that Lanois would put on his albums. And when he worked with U2, he was usually paired up with Brian Eno, who tempered, I think, some of his excesses. But these sessions were very contentious. And this is all according to these great liner notes in this little booklet. Dylan and Lanois had totally different working styles, didn't get along. Here's the band, part of the band that was on the album there in the studio. But I looked through all of this material earlier today for a picture of Lanois just to show as I'm talking. There isn't a single one in here. And so this here, disc 1, is the original album as recorded, but minus all the Lanois production techniques like the echoes and the weird kind of muted drumming and whatnot. Essentially a stripped back version of these songs. So they weren't re-recorded, and they are not alternate versions. They're the same versions as the original, just remixed. And they're 100% better than the original version. I think Lanois, I don't know, these two guys didn't, like I say, they didn't work together well. Maybe they didn't understand each other, but whatever it was, the stripped down version of this album is far superior to the one that was originally released. The big song, the most best-known song from, actually there's a couple from this. One is Not Dark Yet, which, like the title sounds, says, he's, it's not dark that yet, but I'm getting there, is the refrain. Dylan was 56 when he released this album. Coincidentally, that's the same age as Dr. Neptune. But he had recently, very recently, prior to the release, had undergone a health scare, which was publicly known. And it wasn't too long before this that his good friend and collaborator, Jerry Garcia, had died from the Grateful Dead. So this whole album is sort of a meditation on the end of life in one way or another. But Dylan wrote all these songs before all that stuff ever happened. So it was all a coincidence. Or perhaps even that, what I just said, is Dylan obscuring his own past, as he does so much of the time. In any event, this is a great album. And in this form, it's even greater, and a great worthy addition to the bootleg series. This issue of different productions of classic albums is not new. For example, I have here Iggy and the Stooges' 1973 album, Raw Power, with this iconic cover of Iggy. This is an edition that came out, let's see, it says 2010. After this, there was a deluxe edition issued, which included 2 mixes of the same album. So here's the original album. Here you can see this is a live show from the era. This is considered a great cornerstone, the Godfather, one of the Godfathers of punk. In 1973, these guys are from Detroit. They've been playing since the 60s. And a lot of classic songs on here: Search and Destroy, Gimme Danger, Raw Power. But the originally released version of this album, no, I take that back. This is the originally released version of the album. It was produced by David Bowie. Wait a minute. All right, had to fact check, sorry. I'm back. All right, so it says Raw Power produced by Iggy Pop. Wait the fuck. For example, there's this. Iggy and the Stooges album Raw Power from 1973 with this iconic picture of Iggy on the cover. So Iggy and the Stooges, this was their second main incarnation. The first one was in the 60s. They're from Detroit. This is considered a classic album in the pre-punk era. And a lot of these songs are really known and loved. So the story with this album is that it was produced, as you can see here, by Iggy Pop himself. Well, Iggy wasn't that great a producer. He didn't have that much experience, I guess. Maybe it was the drugs, I don't know. But when he handed in his product to the record company, they said, this isn't going to work. And they called in David Bowie, who was a friend of the group, and he shared their artistic value. You can see here, it says that this edition, this 2010 edition that I have, has the original 1973 David Bowie mix. So he remixed Iggy's original production. Iggy still retained production credit, but Bowie substantially changed the sound. And you can find, actually, subsequent to this release, there's a deluxe edition, which includes the Iggy mix, followed by the same album with the Bowie mix, as it were. The first mix minus Bowie's remixing, second with. Anyway, the Bowie mix, the one that was originally released on the album and to the public, is kind of cleaner, more professional sounding, just sounds cleaner, clearer, crisper, although there's an argument you can make that a punk album doesn't really need all those qualities to be great. Certainly all of Sid Vicious's work proves that. A lot of it sounds like it was taped on one of those old-fashioned recorders that you would press play and record at the same time. So it's interesting to hear the two together. There's definitely a difference there, but that's a famous iteration of the production and the mix effect on the sound. And then I have another one here. This is Diana Ross's great album from 1980 called Diana. And it here in this edition, the CD edition, includes 2 separate mixes. Diana Ross made this album with the members of Chic, including this roster here: Nile Rodgers, Bernard Edwards, Tony Thompson, etc. So the entire band basically was a Chic album with Diana Ross singing, and you can see at least two of her biggest hits and best loved are on here, Upside Down and I'm Coming Out. This album was a tremendous success and sort of a comeback of sorts for Diana. So the story with this album is that the original production was by Chic, credited to Chic, and it was deemed a little too rough for the record company, so it was cleaned up, remastered, or remixed rather, and released in the form that the public knows. So with this, I really couldn't tell much of a difference, quite honestly. I love Chic, I love Nile Rodgers, I love this picture. This is Francisco Scavullo, the famous fashion photographer. It's an iconic Diana look. But I would describe both mixes as basically disco, sounding a lot like a Donna Summer, Giorgio Moroder production, or others of the time. I like it. I like them both. I'll listen to them both, but I don't see as much of a difference there as I do with the Iggy and the Stooges album, and certainly not as much as with the two versions of the Bob Dylan one. But those are just a few examples of this phenomenon, I guess. And in the internet age, it's easier to hear differences of what one producer or another produced. Okay. Now that leads me to Taylor Swift. I admire Taylor Swift very much as a songwriter, and much in the vein of Bob Dylan. She's extremely picturesque in her details. Most of her songs are very specific to a narrative situation. I think she's really skilled at that and just getting better. And I like her continual shifting of styles as well through her career. So she's an artist that I admire. She turns, I'm not sure how old, mid-30s, I believe, by this time. But this album is her latest release, her latest official album release called Midnights. It came out at the end of last year, towards the end. But she continues to kind of release updated versions of it. In fact, here I'm showing you the Midnight Blue vinyl version that I have. Only hours after this release dropped, as they say, online, she came out with 3 or 4 additional songs from the same sessions. And since then, she's continually released other remixes of some of the songs on here, many of them rather. And so that's why I think she qualifies for 2023. She, as recently as a couple weeks ago, was the last one that I saw of remix and alternate material from these midnight sessions. Taylor Swift herself has embarked on a similar project, I would say, to the Bob Dylan bootleg series, in that she's revisiting earlier stages of her career. And in her case, because of a legal dispute with her former manager, she's re-recording all of her earlier albums. Something about that she doesn't get the rights to the ones before. So she's recording Taylor's version of all of her albums. This is an ongoing project. Re-recording them, in some cases, changing the lyrics or arrangements or whatnot. But it's an admirable kind of FU by Taylor. I love that as an artist. But here is the song that I want to talk about specifically. It's called Snow on the Beach from Midnights, and this thing is so big it's hard to show without damaging. But it's a collaboration with Lana Del Rey. And it says it was written up there by Taylor, Lana, and Jack Antonoff, who's a producer of both women, and a musician also, and plays on these albums. So Snow on the Beach is a great song, but when it came out, Lana Del Rey fans all over the world said the same thing. Where's Lana? You can barely hear her on the mix here. She's in the background very faintly, but really kind of absent. And to Taylor's credit, she recognized this, and one of the recent, I'm talking within the last month or so, re-releases that she's done is a remix of this song, which features Lana on the second verse in entirety and boosts her vocals in the background a little bit more as well. So now she's clearly audible, and it's much more of a duet between the two, and exactly what Lana fans were hoping for. When Taylor Swift played Allegiant Stadium here in Las Vegas a few months ago, becoming the first female solo artist to sell out that football stadium twice. Blackpink's coming up later this summer also. But she, on stage, gave tribute to Lana when she played this song, Snow on the Beach. And although Lana wasn't there to perform it with her that night, Taylor called her one of the best that we have in terms of singer-songwriters. So that's a nice way for her to honor the great Lana Del Rey. Okay, so there's the Lana and Taylor collaboration, followed by Lana's 9th solo album, which she released a couple months ago. It's called Did You Know That There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard? And you can see some of the personnel there. So this is an edition of this album that's a double vinyl version, and the vinyl is this cool green color. It's an animated or illustrated label. It's the same label on all 4 sides. Alright, so there's that. Here's some of the people on the album. This is a very, very, very personal album for Lana, who is also, I consider, a songwriter in the tradition of Bob Dylan, even more so than Taylor Swift. I think Lana is someone who is just endlessly rewarding to listen to and to ponder her lyrics. This album is largely about her own family. You can see the first track there is the Grants. Her real name, Lana's, is Elizabeth Grant. And many songs on this album deal with her family, the death of a beloved uncle, which was in recent times, and meditations on her own mortality and life and whatnot. Less of the characters that inhabited a lot of her earlier work, which were clearly kind of fictional narratives, but still some of that, and sung beautifully, as always, by Lana. So here, I want to talk about a song called Kintsugi. You see that there. Okay, so Kintsugi. This, I didn't know this word, and Lana Del Rey taught me what it meant. I don't have a lyric sheet to show you. She doesn't include them here, but Kintsugi is the Japanese art of putting broken pottery pieces back together with gold glue, built on the idea that in embracing flaws and imperfections, you can create an even stronger, more beautiful piece of art. I'm reading here from a website to get the definition right. Lana says it much more artfully in her song. Something more poetic than what I just said. But she references also a Leonard Cohen song called Anthem, which is about how when your heart breaks, that's how the light gets in. It's almost a direct quote, I think. And I was really intrigued by this concept of kintsugi. She literally says the Japanese have a word for it. It's called kintsugi. Here are some images to help. of different examples of pottery glued together with gold or otherwise metallic type glue, kintsugi. You can see the patterns that they make. That one in particular struck me when I saw it because I recognized right away the similarity to something else that I had, that's part of my collection. And it's this. Okay, you can see how this album or CD cover has this shiny gold element to it, which is clearly meant to evoke something very much like what you see in this pottery. There's no reference in English to kintsugi on this album, which is called Anti-Fragile, but it's clearly a key visual element of their whole theme. This is Sserafim's second mini album, Anti-Fragile, released in 2002. There are 3 versions of it. This is one of the full-size book versions, and then they had 1 version for each of the 5 members. This one is silver for Chaewon. What's it say here? Actually, it says diamond up in the corner. And then here, emerald for Yeonjun. And then this is one of, I think, 3. It says volume 3. I don't have the other 2 versions of this photo book, but this one is called Frozen Aquamarine. So this Sserafim's second release, their first one after the departure of original member Kim Garam. This is their first album when they had 6 members, including Garam. And she left just a month after their debut in spring of 2022 due to bullying incidents that had been part of her record in school. So they debuted with 6 members here for their first release, I'm Fearless. And this is their logo, for Le Sserafim. It's meant in part to denote that these are anagrams of each other. And if you kind of switch the letters, have them switch places like this, you get Le Sserafim from I'm Fearless. So they released this, and then later in the year they released Anti-Fragile, and they did an interesting thing with their logo for Anti-Fragile, which is to alter it to reflect what I now understand to be this visual image of kintsugi. For example, in this large photo book, it's got the same Le Sserafim logo, but with those characteristic gold lines through it, as if it had been broken and then pieced back together. Can't help but think that that's at least partly a reference to the recent shakeup in their group membership. So clearly, I think kintsugi going on here in Le Sserafim's world with Anti-Fragile, and then to bring it back into 2023, we have here is Le Sserafim's latest release from just a couple months ago. It's called Unforgiven, and I have the 3 photo book versions along with one of the 5 group member versions. This is again Yeonjun's. So their 3 albums are called Fearless, Anti-Fragile, and Unforgiven. They're all words that are the opposite of something. They're all not something. Anti-Fragile, Unforgiven, Fearless. There's a continuing theme in their song lyrics and imagery of that they are strong, yet flawed. The Seraphim, of course, the angels from biblical mythology. But in their imagery, they have broken wings and burnt wings, and they fall into the earth, and they have scars on their faces. It's a very interesting exploration of both vulnerability and strength, coupled with an awesome bunch of songs that cover the range of ballads to R&B style ballads to bangers and to weird kind of futuristic sounds. For this album, Unforgiven, the single Unforgiven is, I don't know if you can see that. I think you can. It says featuring Nile Rodgers. Him again. So he's a legend, has worked with so many people, not just Sserafim and Diana Ross, but of course David Bowie, Madonna, Power Station, all kinds of different artists. So it's a great honor, I think, for him to be working with Sserafim on this song, Unforgiven. It's a great song, too. It's got multi-layered allusions to it. First, the title, I think, is meant to evoke the Clint Eastwood Western from the 90s. In fact, part of the music of Unforgiven includes not samples, I think, but a performed version of the flute theme from Clint's great movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That theme composed by the great Ennio Morricone for those Sergio Leone movies and others. And I'm showing you some pictures from this version of the photo book. This is the Dusty Rose version. Dusty Amber version, rather. Each one has a completely different setup and photo shoot. Here's an example of the bruises that you see to indicate that they've been knocked around but still standing. What I love about these ones is that they've got jewels in them too. So that's this Kaza, the Japanese ballerina. They're all in cowboy getup here. That's why I'm showing it. I think it really expresses the kind of outlaw theme of the movie. Great face chain there on Yunjin. They're riding horses. And some of them inside an office building. I watched the behind the scenes of all this. They actually did shoot this on location in Thailand. Brought these horses into this building. And find my favorite picture of I think it's this one. Kaza on the horse in the hallway, looking around the partition. That horse was very calm through the whole shoot. And then they took him up to the roof. There's a shot there with Kaza and Uche there. I don't know how that horse stood still in such tiny, small spaces, but it was well trained, and the girls took lessons on how to handle that horse. So the song Unforgiven is great. All the whole album of this I really like. It includes songs from those first two EPs. In fact, keeping with the theme of re-recording or revisiting past songs, here you see a couple of notations there of the 2023 version. Those are all songs that appeared on their first Fearless release, the one with Kim Garam. And the 2023 versions, I'm assuming, have been either re-recorded or somehow Garam's vocals have been removed. That's my belief. I've listened to him closely. It's very hard to tell, quite frankly. But I'm pretty sure that's what's going on there. And then there's new songs too, including the title one. And then there's another great one called Eve. There we go. Eve, Psyche, and the Bluebeard's Wife. Very weird sounding song. A future bass, I would describe it as. These references to these famous women. Of course, Eve, everybody knows. Psyche, another woman who paid the price in one version of her myth for being too curious. And the Bluebeard's Wife, a reference to a European folktale. Bluebeard being a wife murderer, a serial wife murderer. And his last wife trying to find out what happened, something like that. But there's these versions of Unforgiven that I wanted to show you, and there is another one that's going to take its own frame. Here's Unforgiven in a totally different version, and one that I never saw before. In fact, when I saw it in the store, I had to have the clerk explain it to me. What you're looking at here is one of looks like 5 posters, one for each group member. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So one including the group, the whole group. But it came in this package. You can see the dimensions here. Can compare it to the Taylor Swift album, so larger than that. And in fact, each one of these posters folds out. All right, so you can see that. I'll lift it up. It's Sakura and the cat. And they're also double-sided. So it's another view of Sakura. So each member has her own double-sided poster. Here's Kaza in ballerina mode. Here is a hilarious picture, I think, of Yunjin, who seems to have the exact same expression on her face as this husky dog that she's holding. Yunjin's the American member of the group, known for her exuberance, but here, a completely different look, dressed in ballet mode like Kaza. So these are really beautiful, high-quality pictures. There's Unche, the youngest member. Here's Chaewon, the leader. Chaewon and Sakura being former members of the group IZ*ONE. And then this would be a fully expanded poster of the whole group. Oh, it's the biggest one of all. So, show you parts of it at a time. And then in addition to that, those posters, the package came with instructions of what this is exactly, which is this. It's called a Weverse album. Okay, here's a QR code that came with it. I had to download the Weverse app and scan the code, and now I can play the Sserafim album on the app. So there's no CD or other physical item besides this QR code. I thought it was very interesting. Also, Weverse is a social media type app too, to connect fans with artists. There's all kinds of K-pop artists on there. And here's a series of photo cards special to this Weverse edition. I have that on my phone. I don't find the social media portion of it very useful because it's almost entirely in Korean, although the groups do post pictures now and then, which are unique to that. I believe that QR code leads to a little video or something. So, I was really intrigued by this different format, and of course, I love the visual aspect of it too, with these large-scale posters. And then this is a new release, like I've been saying, and there's another newer release even that I found very similar to this format. And here's aespa's latest release called My World, stylized here. I'm going to have to lift up to get the full picture of this. This is one of several versions that I have. I'll show the others shortly, but this is called a tabloid version. Let's set this down. For, again, comparison purposes, there's the Taylor Swift album, the 12-inch vinyl, and the aespa tabloid edition is considerably bigger. So this came in a similar package to the Sserafim one I just showed, only instead of individual kind of fold-out posters, it's got a loose tabloid kind of feature to it. I believe these pictures were shot all in Australia. I'm not sure which city, but an urban setting. And you can see how it's basically an enormously sized photo book. Some of the pages you can lift out. You can get a fuller size poster kind of thing of winter on the phone there. Got lyrics. So here's the lyric sheet. Ning Ning and Karina. Winter there. And Giselle on the street. So four-member group. Really great pictures here. Would be awesome posters. But You get the idea from me flipping through like that. Let me set this back down. Get Ning Ning there with the ice cream. So, unlike the Sserafim though, this didn't come with a QR code for the music. It came with an actual CD, which is this one right here. Collage of that photo shoot. And the assorted photo cards and whatnot. So that's one of several versions of My World that I have. So here's 4 photo book versions, one for each member. Here's Winter, Giselle, that's Karina and Ning Ning. And this is a completely different photo shoot. This is on the coast, again, somewhere in Australia. But they've got a completely different look on these, which is just so beautiful. I saw the behind the scenes video for this, and it was a very windy day that day, which made their hair and their clothes blow in a quite picturesque manner. But they're out here in nature, very fresh, beautiful setting. There's Giselle. The only disappointment that I had is that all 4 photo books are the same. So once you take these covers off that are one for each member, all the photos inside are identical, but still strikingly beautiful, all looking like stills from movies or something. Very dramatic. There you can see the blowing clothes and hair. And good representation of aespa's kind of shape-shifting qualities, both sonically and with their image. They've done many different styles of music already, and they're just over 2 years, I think, they've been around. Here's another version. This is a smaller CD version, and this one is Giselle. So one for each member there. But they've got a great variety to their sound. They're an SM artist. SM, the company home to Red Velvet, Girls' Generation, and many other beloved acts. So they've got a great pedigree, and I'll do an entire video on them later on. But I wanted to show this first today. And aespa is also kind of on a world domination campaign, I would say. Oops. Okay. That sound you just heard was me booting up the next visual here. aespa here the other day threw out the first pitch of a New York Yankees game. There's Winter on the mound. Let me get the sound back. There we go. So there's Winter getting the ball back. You can see her on the big screen there too, taking pictures. That's their song Spicy playing in the background. They're missing Giselle. Unfortunately, Giselle has taken ill and is unable to participate in current activities. Here they are. It's a great picture of them at the ballpark. Winter, Karina, and Ning Ning. They played Governor's Ball, which is a very well-known, kind of prestigious festival type thing in Brooklyn. They played that this weekend. They were able to escape the smoke. Actually, that Yankees game was postponed from a day before when there was a huge wildfire issue and the air quality was totally hazardous. But by the time they hit the stage here in Brooklyn, everything was okay. I'm not sure who this artist is, by the way. This is their latest Lauv, L-A-U-V. These are backstage at the Governor's Ball. So that's their latest update there from aespa, and I'll look forward to more from them real soon. So I'm going to wrap up here with NMIXX's latest release, Asparago, which came out a couple months ago. And I talked about these in a recent video on NMIXX, so I'm not going to repeat myself other than to show this. And to note that, like aespa, who has launched a worldwide campaign to steal hearts, starting with the not starting, but including that Yankees game. They were actually, aespa, I should have mentioned, were at the Thanksgiving Day Parade, the Macy's Parade last Thanksgiving in the city as well. And several groups are on tour currently in the U.S., including Tribe, who played Philly last night, or Brooklyn tomorrow, and then NMIXX wrapped up their tour about a week ago. It was very interesting. It is very interesting to follow these groups now on social media and YouTube, because you get daily updates either from them individually, or from their company officially, or from fans that were there. You can see every stop of every tour date in some way or another. In a way that was, of course, never possible when I was following groups like Van Halen, and I had to track their progress based on tour dates published in Circus Magazine monthly. So the interaction of this new age is just completely different from what I grew up with, and I love it so much. It's so much better to be a fan now than it was before. And as my final example of this, I'm going to show you what happened at an NMIXX show in Seattle when someone put a baby on stage. This is an encore. Kyujin there, the youngest member, runs over to the front of the stage and hands the baby back to the audience member. Kyujin appears to be pleading, "Don't do that again." It's a very short video, but I've seen okay, quiet down now. Okay, so I've seen probably 6 different angles of that particular incident, and it's funnier every time. No one was harmed, the baby's fine, he was smiling, but it's just one of those weird things that's captured on fan cams now, phones, that you would have never been able to see if you weren't actually there at the concert standing next to that person. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. If you watched all the way through or not, I'll be back soon another time. Thank you very much.